Good evening. This is Jim Shute from oldhottytoddy.com at DFW Landshark on Twitter. Tonight is our annual Legends segment, and tonight we have the legend from Ole Miss, even though I think somebody named Eli might disagree. Archie Manning is on the line. How you doing, Archie?
I'm doing good, Jim. Glad to be with you, pal.
I appreciate it. Thank you for doing this. So we're 50-year anniversary of the 1969 season, and that's kind of the gist of this interview. It's hard to believe it's been 50 years. I mean, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, it kind of makes me feel old, but it seems like there's been a lot of 50-year things going on. Seems like the last 2 years, but
yeah,
that was a good time in our lives, and those were good days at Ole Miss.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the 69 season to kick it off. So, before the season started in the summer of 69, I know you lost your dad, and that had to be tough. How did you keep your focus going into the season, and did you think about maybe not playing?
Well, I just had so much support. Yeah, I lost my dad, and actually I just finished the second semester of summer school and gone home, and that's when it happened. So I didn't have it maybe 2 weeks before fall practice started. So it was a tough time. It was a tough time for our family. I had my mother and my sister. And sure, a lot of thoughts at first, what I need to do to help them. But my mother would have nothing to do with the thought of me not coming back to school and not continuing to go to Ole Miss and not continuing to play football. So everybody adjusted real well. One thing about a little small town like Drew, Mississippi, you just have great friends, and my mother and my sister had great support there. And of course, it's not that far away. Not that I could go home, but they could get to Oxford some. So everybody dealt with that and kind of made the transition. And I went on back up to school, and we started practice, and we had high hopes. We had finished the 68 season good and played a lot of young people. In those days, when you say you play young people, you're talking about sophomores.
Right, before freshmen.
Freshmen couldn't play.
Right.
But, we did. We my class of sophomores, a lot of us played a lot of football that year, and prepared us, I think, for the 69 season. And I think people around the Southeastern Conference, around the country, saw that too. We were picked to do very well that year.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of hype, for that season. And what was it like playing for Johnny Vaught? What kind of coach was he?
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed playing for Coach Vaught. I liked him from the time I met him when he was recruiting me, and of course, didn't see that much of him my freshman year. We just kind of bumped into him at the athletic dorm, but of course I was out for spring training that year, and I guess you could say I won the quarterback job, so I was getting to know him. He was very involved with the offense, but he was a nice man. He was a very smart man, well respected by his coaching staff. I think very unique in that his coaching staff, most of them had been there a long time. They'd been there with him, and they'd been together a long time. But he was fun to play for. I mean, I was, I don't know if I was a little intimidated. Certainly at first, he'd been there a long time and won a lot of games, won championships. And so to be the quarterback of Ole Miss was a dream come true to me. But really, he gave me a lot of confidence. And Jim, he really did something else. Maybe there were times that fall where I'd reflect on losing my dad, and he was just such a source of support for me, always there for me. If I had maybe a question or something, a problem, to go to him that I would go to my dad with that I couldn't do, and he was really there for me, as was that whole coaching staff. I was close to just about every one of those guys on that staff.
Yeah.
But I spent a lot of time with Coach Vaught. He truly coached the quarterbacks. So I was with him every day in meetings and certainly on the practice field, and we became very good friends.
Well, that was kind of a magical season, and of course the first really big game was the Alabama game, which was the first nationally televised night game, I believe. And I don't know if a lot of people know this, but it started at 9:00 because of the Lawrence Welk show was running, and they couldn't start it till after that was over. But in that game, you set all kind of records: 33 of 52 passes, 436 yards. You rushed 15 times for 104 yards, and in fact, Chris Schenkel called you a thoroughbred during that game. But tell me about that game. One thing I kind of remember is y'all went for 2 points several times that could have been the difference.
Yeah, well, it really started. It really started in the off season. That when that game came out, there was a lot of anticipation. You're right. I know a lot of folks probably can't imagine this, but they just no one played on TV that much in those days, but no one played at night on TV. So that was unique, and certainly playing Alabama and Coach Bryan and nationally televised game at night was big stuff and great anticipation. Maybe a little bit too much anticipation in that we opened the season up and beat Memphis, but we trot up to Lexington, Kentucky the next week and heavily favored over a Kentucky team and got upset. Low scoring game, 10-9. Probably kept a little bit too much stuff on the shelf, and so maybe saving some things for Alabama, and we got beat. So that really made it a must-win situation for us as we went into Birmingham. But it was I think the fact we did kind of play power football the week before, Coach Vaught we let it all hang out against Alabama. Really came out throwing, running, doing what we probably did best, the sprint outs and the bootlegs and that type of thing. They played well that night. Scott Hunter played well. They had a great back in Johnny Musso, so they went up and down the field too. So it was the national audience certainly got to see more like a Jim. It's really more like a game you'd see today, maybe in the Big 12 conference or something. But it was a unique game for that era because we most SEC was still kind of running and not airing it out all the time like the two teams did that night.
Was that the most disappointing loss in your career at Ole Miss?
It sure would be right up there because we just, when you gain almost 700 yards and get beat, it's just hard to swallow that. And I think the worst thing about it, we're picked to win the SEC, and we're 0-2. We're 0-2. So that was the most disappointing thing. And it's hard. We had some huge games coming up, but it's kind of hard to look that far ahead at that point when we've just had great expectations and we started. So yeah, it was really disappointing.
Yeah, so you beat 4 top 10 teams that year. You beat Georgia, LSU. After all that, and then of course the famous game, the Tennessee game, the Hee Haw Kiner game. Maybe the most perfect game I think I've ever seen Ole Miss play. Y'all beat Tennessee 38-0. Have you talked to Kiner about that since that game?
Oh yeah, I know Steve, and I've run into Steve. I didn't say. Well, I played against Steve in pro football several times. He was started out with the Patriots, but he was with the Houston Oilers, who we played every year in preseason. And I knew Steve, but never really talked about that game until years and years later. Actually, Peyton saw him before I did. When Peyton was playing at Tennessee, Philip Fuller was on that team. And so Steve was on campus. He lives in North Carolina. He's a psychologist. And Philip took him over to meet Peyton. And then several years ago, Tennessee came to Oxford for a game, and he came over and visited with me and a lot of my teammates from that time. Steve's, and then I was with him when he went in the College Football Hall of Fame a few years ago. I've been on that board for several years. So he was a real good football player. He kind of turned his life around after pro football.
Do you think regretted the mule comment?
Oh, probably a little bit. We all grow up, it was just probably a youth type thing. And talking to the press, a lot of us probably said some things we'd like to take back. But he was very nice. We had a lot of laughs about it, and he was really fun that day on campus and being around some of my teammates from that era.
Right, so you finished the season. You beat Arkansas in the Sugar Bowl, who had lost to Texas in the game of the century, later in the season. And that was another thrilling game. What's your fondest memory about that game?
Well, just winning. We were, we had those two losses. We did bounce back. We beat a nationally ranked Georgia team in Jackson. It was really good. Fortunately, we had a good schedule in Jackson. And then now we lost along the way to Houston, who may have been one of the most talented teams in the country. They were just really good during my years, really team speed and unbelievable. But it wasn't a conference game. You mentioned LSU. LSU had probably the best team Charlie McClendon ever had. And a lot of people don't remember this, but we were fortunate enough to beat them in a back and forth game there in Jackson. And they finished 9-1. We headed to the Cotton Bowl, and Notre Dame changed their bowl policy and didn't decided they would go to a bowl, and the Cotton Bowl took them to play the Texas-Arkansas winner, and LSU got left out. Didn't get a bowl. There weren't many bowls in those days.
Right.
And so the best LSU team in years and years had to stay home. So that was a huge win in Jackson. And then you mentioned Tennessee coming in. They had beaten the big story about the Tennessee game to me was how poorly I'd played the year before up in Knoxville. We got beat 31-0. I threw 6 interceptions. So that was fun to bounce back. It was fun. A great day for our crowd there in Jackson, cold day. And now Coach Vaught told us before the game, in those days, bowls weren't set, conferences and so forth. It was kind of a lobbying thing. With the bowl members and coaches. And Coach Vaughn, I think, had been, if I'm not mistaken, that may have been his 9th Sugar Bowl. And before the Tennessee game, he told us that if we whipped Tennessee, he pretty much could assure us we'd go to that he could get us in the Sugar Bowl. And that was huge. I mean, that was really huge. That was one of the 4 big games on New Year's Day. So we beat them. Now we still had to beat State, Jim. And we had to go to Starkville. And they had a pretty explosive team. They really did. Had a good passing game. So, but we went over there and took care of business. And going to the Sugar Bowl, just the excitement of being there and being in New Orleans. And of course, Ole Miss, as I said before, had a great history in the Sugar Bowl. And Coach Vaught was excited. And but we played a really good Arkansas team. We wound up to play the loser of that game of the century. So we scouted both teams, and as we were practicing and getting ready, and we really thought Arkansas was the better team, and we thought we would be playing Texas. But it was a great game, and Texas, who didn't throw the ball, a wishbone team, but they completed a long pass late in the game and upset Arkansas. So we caught a real good Arkansas team, but we played good. We played great first half before we got a bunch of injuries and held on and beat them.
Yeah, it was a great season, and of course, coming into the 1970 season, Ole Miss was picked. Some people win it all. I think Sports Illustrated had preseason number 4 and got off to a good start. I think 4-0, and then we ran into Southern Mississippi in Oxford with Willie Heidelberg. Did that game just catch you by surprise? I mean, there were some
well, yeah, you'd have to say somewhat. I mean, you try to be ready to play it. The year before, we beat Southern 69-7. So, for them to come in and beat us, you got to tip your hat to them. And we had won a huge game the week before against Georgia in Athens. We'd gone over there. I was kind of hurt a little bit. And we held on, and, it was a good Georgia team. And to go 4-0, so we might have been coasting a little bit, but I wouldn't want to take anything for Southern. It was a classic upset. you just can't roll your helmets out there and win a football game. You gotta show up to play. That was a great lesson in that.
Yeah, there was some talk that some of the guys, Ole Miss players, went out the night before. I don't know if that's true or not. But
I don't think. No, I don't. It's not that. They whipped us. We couldn't tackle Willie Heidelberg, and they stopped us after a while, and they just did a good job against us.
Yeah, interesting about Willie Heidelberg. I went to Murrah High School in Jackson, and he was an assistant coach. And he said that, the two reverses that they ran against Ole Miss, he said we never ran those plays again the whole season. He couldn't figure out why. So, it was a tough loss, but you bounced back, and of course you played Houston, Oxford, and that's when you broke your arm. And Coach Vaught had the heart attack.
Well, yeah, Coach Vaught had a little heart scare. He didn't really have a heart attack. He had a heart scare, but he didn't coach anymore that year. Coach Kennard took over, so it was kind of a transition for us. We really had to adjust and try to salvage the season. So, but I broke my arm in that game in Houston, which we finally beat Houston, who they were good again, but we kind of got on them early. But that was pretty disappointing in my senior season to break my arm.
Yeah, and you came back against LSU and gave it all you had, but that was a determined LSU team that
yeah, we weren't as good as LSU at that point in the season. We weren't a real good football team at that point with some people injured, but LSU had a lot going for them. They beat us going to the Orange Bowl, but we salvaged a bowl game and went down Gator Bowl and played a real good Auburn team, played their socks off. They had Pat Sullivan, Terry Beasley, good players, but we played them hard, but didn't win.
Yeah. So you had a long pro career, mostly in New Orleans, I guess, before free agency really kicked in. Who knows what might have happened if the league was like it is today? You might have gone somewhere else. But back then, I guess players stayed with their teams longer than they do today. It seems. Right.
Yeah, there wasn't much movement going on with it. And I had people. We weren't very good, and we kept changing coaches. I had people who tell me that I should ask to go somewhere else, but I don't know. We'd kind of put in the years there in New Orleans, and I was kind of hoping that the next coach would be the one that could turn it around, and I'd try to stay there and be part of it.
Yeah. So you married your college sweetheart Olivia, and of course everybody knows the three boys: Cooper, Peyton, and Eli. And Cooper was playing at Newman, and then he enrolled at Ole Miss to play, I believe, wide receiver. Correct?
Yeah, Cooper was a wide receiver. He was quarterback early on in middle school and his sophomore year. He wanted to play receiver, and he was a good receiver and had a really good high school career. He and Peyton got to play together his senior year and Peyton's sophomore year. That was a special year. And then Cooper signed with Ole Miss, but unfortunately had some spinal cord trouble and had to give it up.
Yeah, and so when Peyton was being recruited, he was one of the top 10 recruits in the country, and of course Ole Miss wanted him naturally. Do you think if Cooper had not had to give up football, could have Peyton have ended up at Ole Miss?
Oh, I think that's a possibility. They talked about playing together that senior year for Cooper and Peyton's sophomore year. They had a real special year. Connected for a lot of passes. Went deep in the playoffs all the way to semifinals, which Newman had never been before. But who to say? When Cooper had to have a laminectomy and his career was over. Then Peyton was getting recruited by over 100 schools, and but Peyton loved Ole Miss. Peyton, I really probably out of the three boys, he probably knew more about Ole Miss, knew the history of Ole Miss, knew my teammates, players. He was just kind of a historian type of youngster. It just being recruited by other people. Things just weren't good at Ole Miss at the time. We were looking at some probation, and it was a chance that we didn't know for sure. It was a chance he went there, it'd be lose scholarships or not playing bowl games, not play on TV and that type of thing. So, those schools were really more attracted to him, and he was a mature youngster. We wanted him to make his own decision, which he did.
Sure. So Ole Miss got a second chance with Eli when he was being recruited. Probably not as heavily recruited as Peyton, but heavily recruited. Was David Cutcliffe factor the reason that he ended up at Ole Miss?
Well, Eli maybe not recruited as heavily as Peyton, but Eli didn't want to be recruited heavily as Peyton. He kind of sat there, I think, as an eighth grader and saw Peyton go through all that, and he just decided he didn't want to do that. He kind of wanted to get it down to just a few schools real quick. Then he wanted to commit early, and so he had it down to 3 schools, and Ole Miss being one of them, and Texas and Virginia. But I think in the fact that Tubb left, went to Auburn, and Peyton, Ole Miss hired David Cutcliffe, and Eli committed the next day. He wanted to go to Ole Miss all along. That's okay. Where he really wanted to go to school, but he just wasn't sure. But when now he had told Tennessee from the get-go, he said, "I am not coming to Tennessee and following Peyton." But he certainly knew Coach Cutcliffe and was close to him. And when he got hired, that was a slam dunk. So it proved to us that he actually wanted to go to Ole Miss all along.
And he had a great career. That 2003 season was a great year, and then up to Cotton Bowl. And he broke all of your records. Didn't he make some kind of comment to you about that?
Well, as I said, Eli he wasn't a history type, so he never really studied my career there, but I guess through the years people had told him how great I was or how good I was, and so he didn't pay much attention to it. But by the time he got there, teams were throwing the ball more. We didn't throw the ball that much back in my day, and we were kind of a sprint out passing team, play action team, and the numbers just weren't there for anybody like they are today. Like if I probably threw for 180 yards and ran for another 60, I mean that was a big day. Big day. That's not much today. But anyway, I think once he got there one day, he was just looking through the media guide and looking at my numbers, and he called me. He said, your stats really weren't very good, Dad.
Well, that's too funny. Well, I guess you're in Olivia's wildest dreams. Did you ever dream you'd have 2 NFL quarterbacks, both MVPs twice, Super Bowl?
No. We just tried to raise kids. We felt really blessed that the good Lord gave us 3 healthy youngsters, and we had fun with them growing up. Didn't push them into sports, but they liked sports. I was playing pro football when they were youngsters, so they were around it. And I was glad they played all sports. They played a lot of different things, and certainly never envisioned that they would, the fact if they were going to play high school sports, I think that's good if they like it. I think it's a lot of value there. But never envisioned them playing even college football, certainly not pro ball. But they worked hard at it, and I guess had a little ability and had good coaching, and they worked real hard at it. So no, but never had the idea that the way that would turn out.
Do you think this is Eli's last year, or is he going to try to play a little bit longer?
Well, it depends. It's a situation now that if the Giants can put a good team on the field this year and win some games, Eli can continue to play. But you know what happens? Same thing. It's kind of like when he was a rookie, and they're playing a veteran quarterback in Kurt Warner, and you're not winning. Then you commit to a youth movement. So they've got their next quarterback in place. He's a great young man. Who knows if he's ready to play? You can't tell. Not many really are that quick in their first year, but we'll see. But Eli's healthy. He's never missed any playing time. He's throwing the ball good, and so hopefully the Giants can do something they hadn't done in the last few years, and that's run the ball also. And I think if you run better, that helps you pass protection and be a better offense and win some games.
Yeah, so Eli and Peyton obviously have different personalities. I think that's been well documented. And, of course, Eli led the Giants in 2 come-from-behind victories over Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. So knowing the personalities of Eli and Peyton like you do you think that in those 2 situations, the come-from-behind wins, would Peyton have had the same result? Because Eli seems a little bit more even kill.
Oh, who knows? I mean, of course, Peyton had to play the Patriots his whole career. I think
right.
Peyton played them probably 15, 16 times, and the Patriots they were good throughout his career. So who knows? I mean, he had some good games. He beat the Patriots 3 times in championship games. So they've won 6 Super Bowls. If the Colts and once the Broncos don't beat them in those championship games, that might have been another 3 they would win. So he had some good wins against the Patriots, but they're a hard team to beat.
Yeah. So great careers. Both Peyton and Eli. And so now the lineage continues. You've got a grandson, Cooper's son called Arch, and there's already chatter about his talent. So is he locked in at Duke for Coach Cutcliffe, or what do you think he's going to do?
Oh no, they're going to let Arch just be a freshman and kind of get his feet wet playing. And Cliff's done a really good job, kind of keeping the media away and the coaches and so forth, and let him develop. Looks like he's won the starting job as a freshman, but it'll probably be a crazy up and down year. It's hard to play against kids 3 years older than you are. So we'll just let him play. Hopefully he can stay healthy, learn, and he really likes it, and he works hard at it.
So we're looking forward to following him. So as we wrap this up, let's kind of get a little bit more back into Ole Miss a little bit. Everybody knows, well documented, the problems we've had the last couple of years. Hugh Freeze, I know you and Mike Glenn were heading up the committee to find the new coach, instrumental in the hiring of you, and obviously they had some real success. Were you surprised by the scandal, I guess, both personally and professionally, when it happened?
Oh, sure. I think everybody was, but it's unfortunate. And Coach Freeze has moved on. I think he's going to do very well where he is. I think he'll rebound as a coach in college football. He's a good man, and he's a good coach.
Well, everybody deserves second chances, and I'm sure he's going to get probably back in a Power 5 role probably sooner than later. And I guess you probably know Liberty comes to Ole Miss in 2021. If he's still there, that would be quite interesting.
Yeah.
So, Matt Luke obviously was hired and really was kind of the bridge, I think, with the probation situation that we had. Do you think that based on what you're seeing right now, do you think Matt can be the long-term solution? I know he's hired some really incredible assistant coaches here in the last year.
No, I believe in Matt. Matt's very experienced as a college coach. He's paid his dues as an assistant. And don't forget, there's some good Matt hadn't been at Ole Miss the whole time. There's some other good programs. Other coaches saw enough of Matt to hire him as an assistant. Now, he hadn't had the best cards dealt to him in his early coaching. Now we're out from under the probation cloud, and we're in a tough league. Well, it's always going to be a tough league, but I think he's done well in hiring some assistants, and I think he's recruiting hard. It'll be, I think our schedule is tough this year. When you're in our conference, and maybe especially in the Western Division, and especially kind of where we are coming off the problems we've had, probably the first thing you say, we got to win our 4 non-conference games before we play this tough SEC schedule. And it's just, sometimes it's just coincidental, but we got some tough non-conference games too.
Memphis
opening up in Memphis. Cal coming in here, who plays good football, whooped us out there. So it's a challenge, and it's certainly a challenge for everybody playing an SEC schedule. But I know this. I know the coordinators they hired, I know them well, and they're really good football coaches. And I also know are just trying to keep up, and what I can see and hear, these kids are going to play hard. They're together, and that can take you a long way. When on Saturdays you're playing a team that right now has more talent than you, but if you play together and want to win, some good things can happen. So hopefully, I think a big thing will be to stay healthy. If the team can stay healthy, I think some young people will get their feet wet early and continue to improve. They'll play together under these new systems, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and obviously Matt put his ego aside by hiring these guys. Some people probably couldn't deal with that.
Well, Matt, I don't think Matt has the ego. Peyton played for a guy that did pretty well up at Tennessee, and people used to ask me, what's Philip Fulmer really like? And I'd say, he's a lineman. And by that, I was paying him a great compliment, because most of the time linemen don't have a big ego and just work like crazy. And I think that's what Matt is. He's not an ego guy, but he works extremely hard, coaching and recruiting, and I think it'll pay off for him.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. So, obviously Ole Miss is in a transition period outside of football. We have an interim chancellor, and actually Keith Carter being the interim athletic director. What type of leader do you think Ole Miss needs at the chancellor level going forward?
I think we just need, it's always got to be a fit. And sure, we're a unique university, but most are. We just got to get the right man, and we got to have somebody that stays for a while. We've just had too many changes going on in that position, and but I'm confident we will. It may take some time, and I guess I'm pretty sure the people in charge are going to be very thorough at this, and we'll get the right guy there, and then he'll turn around and hire an athletic director, and hopefully we'll be on our way.
Yeah, Chuck Brownsville, who you know well, Ole Miss Spirit, with Scout.com now, wrote a column a couple of months ago, I guess, after Ross Bjork left for Texas A&M, and basically just laid it out there the way he saw things. One of the things he said was that he thought that Ole Miss the last few years, this was more just the school in general, had kind of turned their backs on Mississippi kids and focused on out of state. Do you buy into that? Do you think that was accurate?
Yeah, maybe I don't know enough about it, Jim. I know Hugh recruited Georgia. We signed a lot of good players. I know we recruited Georgia very well. A lot of schools do. A lot of times it's a good place to recruit. It looked like Mississippi State kind of stayed in Mississippi and did pretty well recruiting. And they weren't necessarily 4-star and 5-star, which I don't always go by that either. But hopefully, I don't know enough about it, but I think Mississippi still plays good. I know we still have good coaches in our high schools in Mississippi and still plays good football. So I think Matt will recruit Mississippi hard. He'll recruit other areas where he'll go anywhere he thinks we can get good football players and players that will help Ole Miss win.
Yeah, and I think Chuck was it wasn't just football. I think in general, I think the student body in general, I think there had been a lot of focus on out-of-state kids, and he felt that we probably need to turn that around a little bit and get a higher percentage of Mississippi kids as students. But that was just his opinion, going forward.
Well, I think that's always healthy if the players are there and you can get them. So we'll just hope we'll progress and get better. And I'm very excited that we're out from under this cloud. I've always felt when you have an investigation and you have some probation problems, the time is more damaging than the punishment. And I think this was certainly the case in what we just got through, just the time that it went on and on and on. And of course, then the rumors and all the speculation of what's going to happen, which didn't necessarily happen, but it does hurt you. Hurts your university, it hurts your football team, hurts your recruiting.
So we open up with Memphis real soon. I mean, it's going to be here before we know it. and we opened up 50 years ago. You were the quarterback in 28-3 win. So what's your prediction for this year? Who wins and why?
Oh, I'm going to pick Ole Miss, but I know it's 11 o'clock game. We'll get a little cloud cover that day, although maybe it needs to be hot, because I know Memphis can go. They spread it out. They got a great young coach, and they spread it out. And I've been impressed with what they've done the last few years. You know, I live here in New Orleans, and I see Tulane, and they're in that American Conference. And Memphis they can run and throw and catch. So we'll definitely have Mike McIntyre and his troops will have work cut out, and hopefully we can keep the ball. Rich and Rodriguez can get our offense going, and we can hold on the ball. And we just need to figure out a way to win a football game up there, and then turn around and win another one.
Do you think we can get to 6 wins or more?
Yes, I do. I certainly do.
That would certainly be a win for Matt Luke after what we've been through. Well, last thing, you were on the college football playoff committee for a while, and there's been a lot of chatter about expansion to 8 teams. Mm-hmm. Do you think it should go to 8 teams?
I like 4
or what?
I like 4. I like 4, and I said from the get-go that number 5 and number 6, they're going to be disappointed. They're going to be mad. They're going to think they got cheated. But I just like 4. I think when you get to 8, you're probably going to get more rematches. I don't think you want rematches. Now, when you're talking about playoff football, rematches usually not good. So I'm with 4. That committee, I can't tell you how hard that committee works. How much work they put in during the week in preparing with data and film study, and then go to Dallas and they meet 2 days and throw it up on the wall. So there's no perfect system, but I think they work as hard as you can work to try to get it right. And I commend them for what they do, and I think 4 is a good number.
I know Jimbo Fisher was quoted recently as saying that he thought it should go to 8. Do you think they'll eventually give in to the pressure, or do you think they'll hold fast at 4?
Probably depends what happens. I don't know. If Alabama and Clemson keep going every year, probably be enough strength somewhere to try to get more, say we got to get somebody else in it, But so I guess it would be healthier for the whole thing if you didn't have, 2 out of the 4 teams are they duplicated each year. At least they have the last few years. So we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, and you lost, didn't have the Big Ten or the Pac-12 in it, so there are a lot of eyeballs that you potentially may have lost, in that scenario. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But well, Archie, listen, I really appreciate your time, your busy schedule, and we're looking forward to a successful season at Ole Miss, and hopefully Eli and the Giants will have a great year, and the grandkids, and you have a healthy rest of the year and safe trips, and really appreciate it.
Okay, Jim. My pleasure. Glad to be here.
All right, hotty toddy. Thank you so much.
Hotty bye-bye.
So that was Archie Manning, Legend segment on hottytoddy.com. This is Jim Shute at DFW Landshark on Twitter. We thank Archie Manning for his time, and it was very insightful, and get ready for kickoff.